Section 5, Video 4, Resource Management Best Practices. In this video, we'll review some best practices that pertain to resource management. Resource management is the allocation of resources from resource providers, which can be ESXi host clusters, to resource consumers like virtual machines. Configure CPU and memory of a virtual machine appropriate for the application. Do not overconfigure. CPU and memory reservation are needed if minimum resources are always guaranteed for a VM. CPU, memory, and storage I/O resource limits default to unlimited. The amount of memory configured for a virtual machine when it was created becomes its effective limit. When specifying reservation for a virtual machine, do not commit all resources. Especially in a DRS-enabled cluster, reservations that are fully committed, the capacity of the cluster or host can prevent DRS from functioning properly. Best practice also indicate deploying a mixed workload on host data store, ensuring a fair share of resources. Example is a mix of high and low I/O VMs on the same host. Configuring limit on a VM CPU and memory only if there is a requirement and a use case, else performance of the VM will be affected. Using reservation or shares parameter to allocate memory and CPU to critical virtual machines. As a best practice, ensure VMware tools is installed on each virtual machine. This ensures that balloon driver is available, which helps in memory reclamation. Ensure any CPU custom affinity settings make sense, especially for a hyper-threaded system. However, CPU affinity reduces the scheduler options and may result in performance degradation. When overcommitting memory on ESXi, ensure that the guest operating systems have sufficient swap space. For best performance and resource use, deploy single-threaded applications on single processor virtual machines instead of virtual machines with multiple CPUs, as this causes the remaining CPUs to be underutilized. Each virtual machine has overhead memory, which is based on CPU and memory size. Overhead memory is included in admission control calculation, so it's important to keep an eye and allow for overhead size in the calculation. vSphere allows overcommitment of resources, including both CPU and memory. However, make sure meets vendor recommended range. To summarize, we looked at resource management best practices for CPU, memory, network, and storage. In the next video, video 5, we will review resource management for memory. Thank you for watching.